With the largest GDP in the world, it's not hard to imagine most of the inventions of the modern day coming from the United States. Any system based on capitalism and free enterprise is bound to drive innovation, even if the motives for that innovation aren't exactly sparkling white. But the truth is, some of the most common things we use today were invented outside the borders of the old stars and stripes, even if they went on to live a fruitful life in the hands of American consumers, saturating the market to the point that it's hard to imagine them coming from anywhere else. Here are the top 10 American inventions that were invented neither in America nor by an American. Number 10. Batteries. So it might come as a surprise to learn that the battery was invented a century before any of this, in 1800, by Alessandro Volta, an Italian. His battery was called the voltaic pile and combined layers of copper, zinc, and cardboard soaked in salt water. The design has modeled the work of another Italian, who noticed that a dead frog's legs will twitch if an electrical charge touches them. Volta simply replaced the frog legs with salt water to create a circuit. As a matter of fact, nearly every stage in the evolution of the battery has come from a different country. An Englishman improved on Volta's battery, and a Swede invented the nickel-cadmium battery, which we still use today. Really, the only American influence came from Benjamin Franklin, who was the first person to use the word battery. Number 9. Decaffeinated coffee. The process of decaffeination was invented by a German named Ludwig Roselius in 1903. It was later widely marketed in the US under the brand name Sanka. In addition to caffeine, coffee also has more than 400 other chemicals, all of which add their own personality to the overall taste, texture, and smell. So removing one specific chemical while keeping everything else intact isn't the easiest thing in the world. Number 8. Answering machine. Once the telephone was invented, it didn't take long for someone to invent a way to screen calls from unwanted callers. Thus, the answering machine was born. For the most part, the answering machine is credited to Benjamin Thornton, an American inventor who filed his patent in 1936. However, just a year earlier a man named Willy Mueller patented an answering machine in Switzerland. Yet this article from the 1930 issue of Popular Mechanics describes a new device as a robot that answers the phone for you, 5 years before Mueller. In all honesty, the history of the answering machine is as confusing as a caterpillar orgy, but one thing is for sure, it was not invented in America. Number 7. Notepad. Before the 1900s, most paper was just stacked in a pile and kept that way. But in 1902, Australian J.A. Birchall decided to put a thin strip of glue across the top of a stack of paper and slap a sheet of cardboard on the back. And just like that, the Notepad was born. They were originally sold as Silver City writing tablets, and went on to become one of the most popular products in the world. Number 6. Contact lenses. Eyeglasses have been around since 13th century Italy, and the design of these haven't changed much over the years, except of course for different types of frames. However, it took over 500 years before, in 1887, a German named Adolf Fick made the decision to do away with frames altogether and simply stick the lens right in his eye. The first contact lenses were huge, 21 mm, 0.8 inches, wide and made from blown glass, with a sugar solution between the lens and the eye to cut down on friction. They were bulky and uncomfortable, but blown glass contacts stuck around for 50 years until they were replaced with plastic ones in 1936. Number 5. DDT. When you think of pesticides, you probably picture something like DDT. Currently banned in 170 countries, DDT was for a time one of the most common pesticides in the US, but it wasn't invented in the same country that brought it to such global prominence. That honor goes to Othmar Zeidler, a German chemist who first synthesized dichlorodiphényl trichloroethane, that's DDT, in 1874. Even so, it wasn't until another chemist in Switzerland named Paul Hermann Muller discovered that it could be used to kill insects in 1939 that it experienced its infamous boom. For his discovery, Muller was awarded the Nobel Prize. Number 4. CDs. CDs are actually invented in 1974, nearly a decade before they even became available to the public market. And the inventors were none other than the Dutch company Philips and the Japanese company Sony, which actually isn't surprising at all. In the mid-70s, both companies independently began working on technologies that could imprint digital sound onto a small plastic disc. In a move rarely seen among industrial giants, the two companies decided to join forces to develop the technology as fast as possible. The first album ever recorded on CD was ABBA's The Visitors in 1981. Number 3. Television. If America can't claim decaf, DDT, and contact lenses, at least we have the TV going for us, the most American invention of all time. Well, wrong again. TV is actually a Russian invention. Specifically, it was a Russian engineer named Boris Rosing who, in 1907, used a cathode ray tube to receive images, creating the earliest framework for transmitting light and pictures to a receiving screen. The invention was born, but like most technologies, it took a few years and several participants to make it happen. Number 2. Aerosol cans. Aerosol spray cans are fairly common all over the world, but the first ones were sold in the US in 1931. If they were introduced to the world in America, then it makes sense that they were invented by an American company. In reality, an American company bought the patent for 100,000 kroner from a Norwegian scientist named Erik Rotheim, who had patented his aerosol invention in Oslo, Norway 5 years earlier. Number 1. Telephone. Despite the fact that Alexander Graham Bell filed the patent for the first electric telephone in the U.S. Patent Office in 1876, his work in the early 1870s took place mostly at his family home in Brantford, Ontario. That's where he and his assistant, Thomas Watson, first transmitted an audio tone over a wire by plucking a metal reed, like a harp. However, Bell had already promised his investors that he would register his device as an American invention, so the patent was filed in the US, and thus America got to claim the telephone as its own, even though the invention itself took shape on Canadian soil. Thanks for watching this video. If you like this video, give a thumbs up and share it with your friends, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel.